Good morning, and good morning. How are we doing? It is Monday, and it's another special day today. It is International Women's Day. Wow, wow. I was just thinking about that, and I was just thinking about all the women have done things, in the past, in the present, and moving in the future, and how I just see a big surge, a big surge. And to me, it all started at the inauguration. I keep thinking about that day when, we had our first vice president being sworn in. And I told people, I said, did you notice that a lot of everything else that was going on, women were kind of going up on the podium? You had the young lady doing the poet, and then, the person that was like over, she was the MC. I was like, wow, was that all orchestrated? I think it was. I think it was. But it was a good thing because it just showed me that, you know what, everything that women are doing right now is paying off. It's really paying off. And it's good to see that. And, I have to thank the men that are in our corners to push us through, because it doesn't just take us to work at it. It takes the opposite sex too to say, you know what, you're really doing a good job and I'm there for you and I want you to rock it. I want you to get to that level and I want you to be equal, and you should be equal because we work hard just like the average other person. So thank you for the man that lifts us up, and thank you for the women that continues to push forward in the fight. So, with that, I was at a quote. I always have a quote. So this time I had a quote about determination. Let me just bring it up really quick. A river cuts through a rock, but because of its power, but it persists. So if you see a river and the water running real quickly, it pushes through. It pushes through the rocks, the stones, and everything else. And I was thinking about that, and I was saying, you know what? That's what we do every day if we're pushing towards our goals, if we're pushing towards our results. We're pushing through whatever adversary, anything that's coming our way, just push through it. Because in the long run, it's going to be such a joy and a happiness in your heart and in your mind that you accomplished that you said, you know what, I'm doing this and I want to stay in the race. So you know what I always say? I always tell people, don't look at the people in the race on the sidelines, but be in the race. Doesn't matter how you're going. Slow, if you're skipping, if you're jumping, if you're running, if you're walking, if you're crawling, but at least you are in the race. You are in the race. So with that, I want to get to our expert this morning, Mr. Iqbal Acha. As always, he's going to give us some wonderful, wonderful information. And what I always say, I always got to get this. Get your pen, get your paper, take those notes, because believe me, these are viable information that you need to listen to. So with that, we are going to bring on our expert for this morning. Here we go.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another majestic Monday. I'm Iqbal Acha, your career consultant, leadership coach, and personal branding expert. I want to hope that all of y'all had a wonderful weekend. And I want to share with you something that happened to me over the weekend. I'm sure that you guys, wherever you may be, I'm in Chicago, and we've been enjoying like 60-degree weather. And that 60-degree weather has allowed me the opportunity to go out and go walking and just really have like a good opportunity to enjoy the spring, which I'm hoping will stay. But the reason why I want to share with this is because I was taking a look at my social media over the weekend, and somebody had posted an interesting question to me. And they said, I watch your videos, I see what you talk about, you're always happy, you're smiling, and you're always so positive. Like, don't you have any problems you're dealing with? And I was like, look, And the reality of it is, like, everyone has problems, right? Biggie knew that more money, more problems. Jay-Z had 99 problems. I'm no different. Like, for those of you that know me, you know that I've got my own problems, right? Like, I'm dealing with challenges and issues with my business. I'm dealing with challenges and issues with my family members or with my diet, just different little things. And we all have problems. There is no one in the world that does not have a problem. The difference is, however, is that I'm working on how to solve my problems. And that is what being a successful leader is all about. Being a successful leader doesn't mean that you don't have any problems. It means you know how to solve problems effectively as they arise. So we're going to talk about problem solving today. And I want to bring this to the forefront, right? Because I know that this is International Women's Month, and there's so many things that women go through that men really just don't understand. And we'll never have the opportunity to recognize some of those problems, but we are there to support and assist. So, Barbara, I appreciate you giving us a nod. And, as I will always say, I'm always for making sure everyone has equal rights, equal opportunity, and equal success. So let's talk about problem solving, because again, when we think about from a leadership perspective, we see, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is that we have seen people in a manager role or a leadership role that was promoted into that position because they possess expert technical skills, right? Whatever position as an entry level or an associate position they were great at computer coding, accounting, healthcare. But those skills are not transferable into a managerial or leadership role, because when you are a manager or a leader, whether it's of a team, a department, a company, you're expected to be able to solve for complex, high-level issues that typically technical skills cannot translate and address. So we are going to talk about, as a leader, because in this last couple of weeks, we've been diving into leadership qualities, leadership traits, and leadership development. And I want to talk about problem solving, because problem solving requires a few things. It requires emotional intelligence, it requires analytical skills, it requires creativity, and most importantly, it requires collaboration. And in today's world, as even from 2021, we're talking 2 months, a solid 2 months and 8 days, there are so many problems that are impacting us as individuals and as a society and as a human race. There are problems in different facets of our life. So individually, we are struggling with mental, physical, emotional health issues. There's social issues, race relations, just a variety of different things. Politically, economically, technologically, militarily, the list goes on and on, which is why we need better leaders that have better problem-solving skills. And that is what we're going to tap into today. So in today's episode, we are going to do problem solving 301, level 301. We're going to go deep into it. We're going to talk about the 4 types of problems that exist. We're going to talk about the 7 steps that you should take to try to approach, identify, and then solve for problems at higher levels. And then we're going to talk about the 6 aspects of high-functioning leaders that you need to adopt in order to help you solve for problems better. For those of you that are just joining me, good morning. Again, my name is Iqbal Acha. I'm a career consultant, leadership coach, and personal branding expert. For the past 20 years, I've been helping Fortune 500 companies, nonprofit organizations, and small businesses attract new audiences, hire top talented people, and develop a new generation of leaders. Today, I help students, professionals, managers, and directors and executives advance their career, build a better brand, and create a leadership legacy. So before we even dive into problem solving, how do we break down what is problem solving? You would think it's an obvious thing, that of course there's a problem, you solve for it, but it's actually a form of thinking. So I want to make that distinction, right? Problem solving is not just here is a problem, now solve for it. It's being able to solve for problems that haven't even necessarily been identified or that exist. Problem solving is a higher level cognitive functioning process that is really found in individuals and organisms that have the ability to look at things and go from where they are today to where they need to be. And when they think about problems, they think about problems in a very unique way. Because when you think about a problem, it's not just what is impacting me. That's very reactive, right? It's very reactionary. For a problem, here's what we do, and now it's solved, so let's move on and status quo. No, good leaders identify problems that are very complex, and they look for ways to be able to look at the problem in different aspects. And so I want to talk about the 4 types of problems that most people experience and how we break it down. So the first kind of problem, or the first type of problem, I should say, is intransparency, or lack of transparency. That is where you have a problem where there is a lack of clarity regarding the solution. Here's an example. You own a boat, but you have never been on the water, and you're about to deal with a hurricane that you've never faced. You don't know how to operate the boat because you own it, but you've never took it out on the water. You don't know how to steer the boat. You don't know how to manage choppy water, and you've never been in a hurricane. There's a lot of unknowns in this problem, right? And that is the part that you would say is a good example to describe intransparency, the inability to recognize all aspects of a situation. There is also a second type called complexity. A complexity is where there's a large number of issues and a large number of decisions that need to be made when you're taking into consideration the problem. So here, let me give you an example. There is a situation where someone is dealing with many complex factors. So for example, they have a financial sheet and they need to make it balance properly. But if you've ever looked at a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet, you recognize there's a million line items, there's a million time slots, there's a million allocations that need to be done, and it needs to balance out at the end. So if you've ever had to deal with that, you'll understand that a complex situation or a complex problem is how do we allocate the resources equally or most efficiently for the business or for the family. There's another type of category, a third category of problems called polytely. Poly, P-O-L-Y, meaning many, and tele, meaning issues. So this is where multiple goals need to be achieved. And this is the best way for me to describe what polytely or polytele is. It's a good example when a person has to do a business report that is due. They not only have to show how they are going to cut costs, they have to do it without firing someone, and they have to do it while allowing revenue to increase for the company. So a different, complex, different ways, right? You're trying to do something, solve for a problem that is going to achieve multiple goals. The last type of issue or the last type of problem that most people feel is dynamics. This is a problem with time considerations, time. So for example, you're a military leader and you are about to face the onslaught of an enemy in 5 minutes. You need to come up with a strategy and a plan to quickly mobilize your troops, arm them, and send them out in waves to be able to defend the fort and slay or fight off your enemy, right? That's dynamic. So there are 4 types of problems that most people face, and those are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about today. Because when you think about problem solving, most people are very reactionary. We see an issue, and this is the only issue. It doesn't impact anything else, so we should flip this lever, and now boom, we're done. That's not reality. That's not real life. So by looking at the different types of problems, you have an ability to say, well, if we have multiple goals that we need to achieve, how can we do it by minimizing the resources in this space and maximizing it there so that the goals are achieved? That's one way of looking at it. Now, if you've ever solved for a problem, whether it's individually, collectively, for a community or society, you'll recognize that, again, as a leader, right? You have to be forward thinking, and you have to be able to look at issues. You have to look at an issue that may not even be that glaring. You may not even be facing this problem. You simply may just be, brainstorming for ideas because you want to improve or take your company or your department to the next level. But, like I said before, we have seen leaders that have been promoted to a managerial position or director position based upon their technical skills. Maybe they're great at, computer coding. Maybe they're phenomenal at Python or ASC2 or JavaScript. And they did a phenomenal job on multiple projects, but now they're leading people and they're trying to create a strategy and vision for their department to, keep up with the times or maybe even be an industry leader. Well, those technical skills are not going to help, because what you can do with those technical skills is solve for problems today, but you need creative vision and you need forward thinking to be able to look at those ideas. So when you have a problem, you need to be able to address problems in a very structured and schematic way. In fact, there's 7 steps that every leader should use, literally in order, to be able to solve for a problem. The first is identify what the problem is. Right? The best way to do that is to ask 2 questions. The first question is, what are things like if they were to be the way we want them to be? What would things look like if they were the way that we want them to be? Right? So you may be in a dire situation where your company is going underwater, and you know that whatever decisions have been made in the past by others, or you've inherited a problem, and now you're thinking, look, if these problems weren't here, what would we be doing? How would we be successful? Where would we be the industry leader? What would we be offering as a product or service that would make people remember us? Right? That's one great way of being able to identify what the issue is. And then the next question that would be is, how far off from that idea or that vision would we need to be in order to be able to say, it's not the best, but we're okay. We're in a better spot, and we're comfortable for the time being, right? There shows an ideal and an acceptable range. Right? The ideal is 100%. We want to shoot for the moon. We want to be able to do whatever we can to, increase revenue, increase sales, decrease resources, cut headcount, or do all these different things. But there is a goal that needs to be met. And if you set the goal 100% and say that's the only goal, then you will guarantee yourself failure. But if you can say this is 100% and that's what we're shooting for, but if we hit 98%, we're still okay. That's a good leader. Good leaders do that. Number 2, analyze the problem, right? So you have an issue. Now you've identified what is ideal, what's minimally acceptable. You need to be able to take a look at where you are today in this stage, right? And there's actually 3 stages of analytics of a problem when you're doing problem solving to recognize where you are. The first is an emergent stage. That means you're at the beginning of this problem. It's not an immediate threat. Nothing is hurting you, your company, your employees. You just know it's on the radar and you know it's coming. So you want to try to do whatever you can to stop it from being a major issue. And so that is an emergent stage. And if you can identify and analyze, hey, this is what we see coming in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. A competitor has already started this. A second competitor is adopting it. We need to be at this curve right now, right? So that way we're ready in 3, 6, 9 months. That's stage 1, emergent. Stage 2, mature stage. That means you're in the middle of it. It's harmful, it's hurting you, and it's causing minor damage. In other words, your stock price hasn't completely dropped. You haven't needed to lay off 50% of your employees. You're still producing products and services, but you're definitely recognizing that there's a hit in some capacity. That will help you recognize what resources you need to get ready and how to implement them, and at what speed. The third stage is crisis stage, right? That is where it is so serious that everything should be shut down and you need to address this issue now. Right? Like there is no more, well, we have a week or 2, let's talk about it. Let's put a project together. Let's assemble members of your team. No, you get your board of directors, you get your circle of trust, you meet with them that day, you make some hard decisions, and you recognize that while it hurts some people or while it hurts some departments, this is the best thing for the organization. And this is how you move forward. So 3 stages. You have to analyze where you are. Are you at the emergent stage? Are you at the mature stage? Or are you at the crisis stage? Once you've done that, you need to describe the problem, right? Now you might be thinking, we already know what the problem is, right? We've identified it. We've analyzed it. Clearly, this is a no-brainer. No. Writing your problem down in 12 words or less is the mission. And by doing that, it brings 2 things. Number 1, it brings clarity for you, and it brings clarity for your team. Because you can analyze a problem. You can say this is what the problem is. You can describe the problem. But if you cannot do it in 12 words or less, you and your team are not going to be on the same page when we all say, yes, this is a problem. And yes, we are all working towards solving this. So write your problem down in 12 words or less and say, this is what our problem is. Get consensus with the stakeholders on your team. Do you all agree? When I show you these 12 words, can we all say that, yes, this is the problem? Like company ABC just moved across the street and they're stealing 80% of our business. Is that the problem? Or is it a quality issue on our fight? You have to write it down. Number 4, look for root causes. And this is the best part. Like this is where, and we're going to talk about this from a professional perspective as well in a minute. But this is what I want to talk to you about. Number 1, at this point, like when you hit this stage, looking for root causes, this is where the floodgates of questions open. This is where you ask a ton of questions, because what you're trying to do is recognize where you're trying to recognize every angle of this problem. You're trying to recognize what caused the problem, who's responsible for the problem, when did this problem first start, right? When did this problem first emerge? Why did this happen? I think that's the best question. Like, how could this happen? How did this variance from the standard come to be? Like, this is the original root cause issue. We were doing this, everything was fine, and then the next thing we blink our eyes and boom, we have a problem. How did this come to be? Where does it hurt us the most? Like, that's another great question. How do we resolve for the problem? And the number one question, this is the last question that I encourage everyone to ask. Can we solve for this problem so well that it never happens again? Right? So you can ask all of these who, what, why, how questions. And at the end of it all, you have to be able to ask, can we solve for this problem so well that it will never happen again? Now, I know that we are all living in very turbulent times. The world is very dynamic. Things are changing. Technology is rapidly advancing. And there are things that are changing at really outside of our scope. But the decisions that you make are going to be based on this root cause analysis. And I encourage all of you that if you go through this process to ask that one question at the end, can we solve for things so well that it won't ever happen again? Because that will show you what gaps you might have in your problem solving skills. Number 5, develop alternate solutions. I mean, I'm sure that at some point in your personal life, professional life, even interactions with friends and family, that you have come to a decision based on amazing research and amazing analytics and says, guys, after having this discussion with you, this is the best course of action. And you put all of your eggs in that one basket and you move forward. And 2 weeks later, or 6 weeks later, or 12 weeks later, it's not the best course of action. And now all of a sudden you are looking at going back and having to repeat the entire process of, hey, we thought we had this solved for. Do yourselves a favor. Have a list of options ready to go. It says, hey, this was number 1. And number 1 worked for the first week or 2, and now it's not working, right? So what else can we do? Well, we have options 2, options 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go down that list, right? Because if you were smart, you prioritized it with your team. And you said, this is the absolute best option. We're going to go with this. But just in case it doesn't work out, let's go with option 2, right? And now you get to implement option 2. It will also help you and your team be on the same page without a lot of pushback, without a lot of challenges, because all of you came up with those solutions. Number 6, implement the solution. You've got your list. You said this is number 1. Everyone on your team knows and understands their part. So this is the important part. Like, implementing the solution isn't just great, guys. We've come together, we've talked about it, we've identified, we've analyzed, we've looked at the stages, we've done a root cause analysis, and now we're saying, great, let's go for it. No, implementing the solution means project management. Saying, guess what? Finance, you're going to go work on this. Compliance, you're going to go work on this. Talent acquisitions and human resources, your job is to do this. Operations, your job is to do this. Everyone is clear about what they need to do in order to solve for this problem, because they're all working towards the same goal. They're just approaching it. They're coming to Rome in different roads. Right? And that is the critical part. So number 1, everyone on your team knows what their part is and understands what they're doing to achieve the same goal. Number 2, you get to define timelines for execution when you implement your solution. That means in the next 2 weeks, operations will have done this. In 3 weeks, human resources will have done this. And in a week, compliance will have done this, right? Everyone has those guidelines. And most importantly, you need to have a tracking system that is going to be put in place to gauge whether or not the solution has been corrected. Like, whether the solution has corrected the problem or not. How do you know? You can't just say, well, go ahead and do this in a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks now, and the problem will be solved. You need to go back and measure, which brings us to the last part in the problem solving strategy: measure the results. right? You have to be able to measure the results and just be able to say, hey, here is what we did. Here's the timelines that we executed. And this is what came of that. Right. And now you get to go back and recognize, like, okay, this is where we struggled in the first week, but man, we made up for it in the 3 weeks afterwards that we continued the trajectory. So there's a 7-step process of solving for problems. Now, that's great for anyone and everyone, right? Whether we're talking a personal issue, a professional challenge, an organizational opportunity, whatever that case may be, these are the 7 steps to do problem solving. But we are talking about leaderships. Or leadership qualities and high functioning leaders, right? Because as I mentioned before, I mean, I've seen it in the 25 years of being a professional and working out in the field, where you can have somebody that's a phenomenal worker that gets promoted into a managerial or leadership position. And they're like, great, I'm the queen, I'm the king, I'm the boss. And guess what? I got here because I'm really good at X. But you're not solving for X anymore. You're solving for Y. And Y means you're working with other people. It means you're engaging, interacting, collaborating, and even challenging other people that are not just at your level, but 2 levels, 3 levels, 4 levels higher than you, that have a broader view of the organization and a larger, more holistic view of what's happening. And yet you need to stand on your 2 feet with absolute fortitude and certainty and be able to say, here's what we're going to do, because here is the problem. And this is why we're going to talk about this, because the absolute number one reason why problem solving is such a struggle for people is because they are afraid. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I've been in enough board meetings. I've been in enough meetings and strategy meetings with enough VPs, EVPs, SVPs, directors, CEOs, COOs, and they are all doing the same 4 problems. Number 1, they're all searching for the perfect answer. That they're sitting there and thinking, okay, I could do this, but man, that's not good enough. So I don't want to say anything. Bad, very bad, right? I mean, there should be a whiteboard. There should be 8 whiteboards in every room where you are just throwing out ideas. And that's issue number 2 that I see that is a block or an obstacle for a lot of leaders, right? They don't want to ask a dumb question. And I'm hoping that if you're watching this show and if you've ever said, you know what, I have an idea, but I don't want to ask a dumb question, I hope that you remove that from your vocabulary. Anytime I've spoken with a client, a student, a professional, and I've heard that, I said, ladies and gentlemen, the only dumb question is the one that is never asked. There is no such thing as a dumb question, because if you can ask a dumb question, that means 10 other people are thinking the same thing. I didn't know how to ask that question. I'm glad you did. So always be bold enough to ask that question. And that is what I see most leaders are afraid to do. They don't want to look stupid because they think everybody already knows. 99% of the time, they don't. Number 3, crazy ideas. Well, I don't want to think outside the box, but because, it's just insane. You should. I had a boss once and he would say, I need your BHAGs. And I was like, what is a BHAG? A big, hairy, audacious goal. BHAG. And I would be like, wow, that's phenomenal. It's like, I don't care what it is. I don't care. Suggest something. Tell me something that makes me have to question, wow, why can't we get those resources? And then the number 4 reason why people are stymied or why they're stopped or blocked by trying to figure out, hey, how do we figure this out, is because they go through analysis paralysis. They go through a point where they say, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed by what is happening here. I just can't think. Strong, confident, effective leaders put their fears to the side and then they work through these problems as best as they can by maintaining and incorporating emotional intelligence. So there's 6 things that I want to quickly go through as part of a successful entrepreneur or a successful business leader that has enabled them to solve for problems. Number 1, be professional at all times. Because remember, as the leader, you are setting the example. Your team, your direct reports, your organization, they are looking to you for guidance. And when you're calm, your team is calm and your associates are calm. And at the end, in your calm demeanor in the face of a crisis earns you respect. And it raises your reputation amongst your peers. Number 2, big picture thinking. It's really easy to get caught up in the crisis, right? Like you can look at the small things and go, oh my God, this is going to happen to us. What's going to happen to me tomorrow or by the end of this week? And the fact of the matter is that when you're focused on the current crisis, you lose sight of the business's mission. You lose sight of why you're doing and why you started, or why you even joined the group, or why you're promoting, this product or service. You started this, or you joined this company because you felt that there was a connection between you and the values of this group, and that is the sole purpose of what you're doing. This is a blip on the radar. So you need to adjust your problem solving so that it furthers the future success of the business and not solve for the crisis at hand. Number 3, avoid finger pointing. It is very easy to get caught up in the blame game, right? Like, who did this? How did this happen? And who's the person that was responsible? It wastes hours. It demoralizes your team. People tend to question themselves, the reasons why they joined. The best way for you to do this, if you're facing a crisis as a leader, engage your workers to help you solve the problem. Say, guys, here's a problem that has come up on our radar, and I'm looking for your ideas. What it does is not only lifts their spirits, it also gives them an opportunity to feel as if they are a part of the solution. And by their contributions and implementing their contributions, they will feel that they have held and played a role in solving a company's biggest crisis. It's the best way to do it. Number 4, collect data. There is a treasure trove of information that is available now because of technology, whether it's to identify customer behavior, better purchasing and better marketing, a variety of different things. Making guesses does not help you rise above the competition. Just because you saw a company do this today, or they were printed in an article as, the 40, whatever, 30 under 30, 40 under 40, you might say, well, they did it because of this. That's not true, because you don't have the data. Get the data, gather as many facts as possible, talk to people, use technology and gather the data, and then analyze what really led to the crisis or what's leading to the obstacles. Number 5, stay positive. See problems as opportunities. You want to be able to bring groups of people together and do a brainstorming session, because an effective leader does not work alone. I've never in my entire 49 years of life seen a leader be able to say, here's the problem, I fixed it, yay me, right? Never happens. And it'll never happen for you either. Finally, monitor the results, right? Pay close attention to the results that come from your decisions. That will help you move forward with the information. And when you know the cause of the problem and what resolved it, you'll be able to use it as a precedent, as an example, not just for yourself, but for other peers and for other departments and for other companies. I mean, I've seen where companies that are completely unrelated come to a subject matter expert organization and they say, you are the #1 logistics company. We want to see and learn from you. Will you teach us? It's a phenomenal opportunity. As always, guys, I hope that you find these insights and ideas helpful for you along your professional and your personal journey. And if you'd like to learn more about me, or if you have any questions, please connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can visit my website, www.achainternational.com. And until then, I'm Iqbal Acha, your career consultant, leadership coach, and personal branding expert, reminding you to always be polite, be professional, and be persistent. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you, Iqbal, so much. You always give wonderful information. He was talking about basically problems, and I went through my quote file. As everybody knows, I love my quotes, and I found something that I want people to resonate with before we bring on our awesome queen, Trish Carr. Obstacles can't stop you. Problems can't stop you. Most of all, other people can't stop you. The only one who can stop you is yourself. So with that, so any kind of challenges, problems, whatever, I know you're like, I'm not taking it lightly, because we have to go through the emotional thing and deal with it. But in the long run, we're the ones that stops ourselves. A lot of people tell me, well, Barbara, they did this and they said that, and they made me upset and everything. I said, but You let it get to that, right? Because you control your emotions. You control what's coming at you and how you're going to react. So, we had to take accountability of that and say to ourselves, did I let them really piss me off? Everything they're saying, because you go there and we're human. I get it. But you have to take it and own it and say to yourself, okay, I went all the way there because yes, I let my emotions get the best of me, or, I went there because it's something inside of me when they were saying something, maybe drew up some things that you might have to look at again and say, oh, okay, maybe I need to look at that again. If I let something like that really piss me off real quickly, then what was the main point of that? Dig deep. I'm always telling people dig deep. I'm always talking about dig deep for your purpose, passion, and drive. But sometimes you got to dig deep and see what makes you just kind of say, why did that really bother me? Why did that really hit a point, a pain point somewhere? So remember that we are the only ones that stops ourselves from going through the challenges and problems. We have to make sure that we're determined again earlier, be persistent in what you're trying to do. So with that, we are going to bring on the next expert. Love this lady so much. Trish Carr, she's going to come again. You always say, get your pen, get your paper, write them notes. This is information that you can take and guide you and help you through your day in your business or in your personal lives. So we are going to bring on Miss Trish. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Hello. And hey, it's Women's History Month. Not only is it Women's History Month, but today is International Women's Day. So I want you to first of all applaud yourself because you are a woman on the move, and you may be a gentleman on the move who's supporting an amazing woman who is on the move. And one of the things that successful women know, and I'll have to go back to what Iqbal said, high functioning leaders, high performing leaders, one of the things we know is that it's important to share our story and the stories of people that have used our services and as a result are moving forward in their lives. So telling stories is a really important part of being an entrepreneur because, they say facts tell and stories sell. If you think about it, if you've ever seen a TED Talk or a TEDx talk, those talks generally run around 17 minutes. And if you look at them, about 12 of those minutes is spent on telling stories that touch the heart, stories that open the heart and open the mind so that people can see themselves with you, working with you through their situation. So I would love to give you today the 3 steps to great stories. 3 steps, and that's all it is. I'm a big believer in formulas. I love math. I love that A plus B always equals C. I love that 1 and 1 is always 2. And when you have a formula that you can use and you can plug and play, it makes things so much easier. So here's what we want to do with stories, whether we're telling your story about how you got started or a frustration that you had or a roadblock that you overcame or something that was happening in your life that you have now transcended, which is the key. You have now transcended. Or whether you're telling the story of your clients and what they were experiencing and what they wanted and the roadblocks that were in their way until they worked with you, this formula works. So again, whether it's your story or the stories of the people that you've worked with, because remember, your story is really important. And if you look at what happens in commercials on social media, It's other people's stories and other people's ability to overcome based on what you gave them that makes the difference between them saying, well, I'll think about it, or yes, I have to have what you're talking about. I have to have it. Here's my credit card. I have to have it. So here's how you tell a story. The first thing is you want to bring the person and the challenges to life. Now, I get it that sometimes you're not going to use the name of your client because you're confidential, right? But sometimes you can, especially if other people know that person and they've seen the growth in that person. You certainly can. Just make sure you let them know, hey, I'm going to be talking about you. Is it okay? Most of the time they're going to say yes, because it's promotion for them as well. So bring the person and the challenge to life. And what you want to do is be descriptive with their experience before they came to you. What was affecting them? How were they feeling? What were they doing in terms of how they felt and what they did or they didn't do? What did the challenge cause to happen in their life? How was it stopping them? What resulted because of the problem? So really be descriptive and bring it to life. And I'm going to give you an example of what this sounds like after I give you all three of the steps. I have a great story I'm going to share with you. And it only takes about 2 minutes. And you're going to be able to use these kinds of stories on Instagrams, on Facebooks, on any YouTubes, any kind of videos that you're doing. When you tell a story of someone who's overcome and who's been able to get where they want to go because of you, people are interested in what it is you have to say. So be sure you bring it to life with descriptions of how they were feeling. Because remember, people buy on emotion. They buy because you've touched them and inspired them and moved them in some way that they can see themselves, they can see people they know, and they can totally relate to what it is you're talking about. So be descriptive. After you bring to life the experience they were having with the challenge before they got with you, then you'll quickly want to just seed your service. And we use that term because it's about sharing briefly what happened when you helped them. Now, here's the thing. You don't want to give them every technique that you shared with that person so that they overcame their issue, because if you give them every technique, what's going to happen? They're going to say, let me go ahead and try this. And if it doesn't work, I'll give you a call. So you want to give them a little bit of information, but not the whole story about what you did, because you're not going to really be doing them a service by giving them just a little bit. Let them think that they have the answer, the key to the kingdom, the silver bullet, when in fact they don't. In fact, that's a disservice. A disservice to let people leave or watch your video or hear you speak on a Zoom or hear you at an event and think they can do it all by themselves. You're actually setting them up for failure. So you don't want to give too much. The third thing is then you want to articulate and richly describe their desired outcome being fulfilled. How do they feel now? What's happening in their day-to-day life? How did that situation that was so dire or such a challenge now turn around? So let me give you an example of what that sounds like. So I recently worked with a woman who was juggling it all. She was a mom with 3 school-aged kids. She managed her household, her husband, and her full-time business. And that's truly who I work with, is most people who are either creating a new business on the side or people who are working full-time in their business. And they come to us at Women's Prosperity Network for community, for connections, and to be able to get to the next level in their business. So we give them strategies and tools to do that. So the story goes, she was working in her full-time business. She was managing her husband, managing her life, managing the household. And while the business was supposed to be only 8 hours a day, most weeks she was putting in 50 to 60 hours, working on weekends and into the evenings just so she could keep up. Most nights she'd be so overwhelmed that she couldn't even make a decision between cooking peas or carrots or ordering pizza or Chinese. Her attention span had gotten shorter and shorter. Her temper was getting shorter and shorter, and that was creating long-term problems. She was snapping at the kids, snapping at her husband, falling behind rather than getting ahead at work. And when she woke up in the morning, all she could think about was going back to bed. Can you relate? I know that I can. She was really about to break. So she realized that something had to give, and she finally called me. And she committed to making a change and started with something that could get her quick results and give her long-term success as well. And that was our Momentum program at Women's Prosperity Network. The Momentum Mastermind is a combination of group mentoring and training where you get individual support, answers to your questions, ideas for your challenges, as well as accountability to keep you in action, along with a clear structure with repeatable actions that get you where you want to go. The first thing we did was give her strategies and some simple tools that could bring her back to peace and calm in a moment. In less than a week, she not only felt better, she got more done in that week than she had done the entire previous month. She was doing really well. And as a result to committing to make those changes and having some structure, she's significantly less stressed and is able to easily make those decisions that caused paralysis before. She figured out how to work less hours and bring in more clients and more money, doubling her revenue while reducing her hours because she's working smarter rather than harder. Her husband, her kids have told her over and over how much they appreciate what she's doing. They love the new version of her, and she's really found her passion again for her business, for her family, and most of all, for herself. Now, that's a true story of someone who was working really hard and felt like they were on a treadmill. But notice that you can actually see what was happening for her. You probably feel her pain and relate to it a little bit. So the Momentum Mastermind was all that I mentioned there. And I gave a few suggestions as to how the mastermind helped. She got some structure. She learned some tools that she could overcome stress in a moment. It made her challenges easier, and it made her easy to attain what she wanted to attain. So that's how you tell a story. Number one, bring the person to life and be descriptive of what they're experiencing in their day-to-day. Number two, see your services. How did they reach that goal? And just give them a little information so they know what it is you're talking about. And number three, articulate and richly describe their desired outcome fulfilled. You know, there's a formula to everything, and the formula for storytelling will work for you no matter where you use it, no matter how you use it. And we have at Women's Prosperity Network, we have a template, if you will, for speaking, no matter how you're speaking, one-on-one, from a stage, on a video. And here's where you can get that template. If you go to speakingforfunandprofit.com, that's speakingforfunandprofit.com, you'll get the formula for speaking this type of talking to audiences. And it will help you so that you can plug and play every single time. And of course, please connect with us at womensprosperityNetwork.com and me at Trish at womensprosperityNetwork.com. It is Women's History Month, and you're making history. And it's time that you let people know the effect that you're having on individuals, your community, and the world. So get out there and tell your story and the stories of people you've made a difference for. I'm Trish Carr with Captivating Communication, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.
Oh my God, Trish. When people talk about your stories and understanding how to tell your stories, that is like my heart right there. So thank you, Queen. Thank you, Trish, for really explaining that and really getting a little bit more detail on why it's so important, what you're doing in your business and in your personal life. It really is. When you tell a story, people connect. People connect to stories. When you're just listing facts, okay, it's there. I always tell people I can always go to Google University and get the facts. But when you get deep and tell in vulnerability of telling your stories, and then you take me there with you, and then I'm like, wow, I'm in that story too, because I'm dealing with certain things, or I accomplished certain things like you did. We connect. We would create a relationship. We build a relationship, and that's what it's all about. So thank you, Trish, for coming on. Love you, love you, love you. And again, Women's Prosperity Network, go to their site. You'll meet some fabulous women. Awesome, awesome. You're talking about relationships and building networking. That's the place to be. I used to be a chapter leader. I know. I'm giving you the stamp of approval there to go there. And I always welcome anyone that has any that needs information about it. Please reach out to Trish Carr or myself, because I can send you that information as well. Well, I can't believe it. The show, wow, we did an hour today. So again, I want to wish everybody, as you've seen, I've been doing certain videos because today is International Women's Day, and we just want to celebrate the women, in the past, in the present, and in the future. And like I said, just keep pushing forward. We are rocking it. I believe, and I've been hearing all over, that this is really the year of the women. This is really the year of the women. In any kind of capacity that we're doing, we are rocking it now. We've been rocking it, but we're just kind of like, here we go. You can't stop us. I was thinking about Sharon Mathis. She's part of Celebrate You, and she's always singing, ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. And every time I hear her sing that song, I'd be like, yes, we are. We're on the move. And we've been moving and moving and moving. So, today I asked everybody, maybe do a text, maybe a message, reach out to our sisters, other women, and just do like a high five over the phone, or just get on real quickly, or send a text and say, hey, let's rock it. Let's celebrate our day and celebrate our month, because we have the whole month of March. So with that, we will be back on Wednesday with Mr. Barry Nixon. He's going to be talking about the gems and how there's value in that. Give us our stories in the gems. And then also, he'll be talking about value in you and your stories. So he gets deep into that, knowing your value. And then we'll also hear from Mrs. Laura Armstrong. She's going to be getting deep, and I love her subject, understanding other people's personalities so you know how to communicate with each other. And she has tips. Don't you want tips to understand how to talk to that, potential client, or how to talk to maybe your siblings, or just how to talk, period, with other people when you're talking and walking around with people? She gives you that little extra, like, okay, if they're an action person, this is how you're supposed to deal with them. If they're a nurturing person, this is how you're supposed to deal with them. So she'll be on Wednesday, and then we'll be back with some other goodies. But until then, as I always say, what do I say? And you know this if you watch the show. Remember your diamond factor, your PPD, your purpose, your passion, and your drive in your life. I call that your foundation in you. When all the challenges and those places, I always say, are just all over the place, and the pandemic, we can put that out there too. We don't let that stop us from moving forward because we know what we're about. We know our genius. We know what we have, our gifts in us to push us forward in anything that happens. So with that said, I will see you on Wednesday. Have a wonderful day and believe in you.